Hello, buddy, and welcome to Legend City Sentai Denzicaster here on Geek Carolina, your weekly walk through the wonderful world of Tokusatsu. I'm your host, Mike, and I'm joined by
Liam,
David,
and folks. Today we are taking a look at Tokusatsu history, which I'm sure, much like other historical things that at least Dave has encountered, he slept through most of it. So.
hey, listen, I was 11 when they were tearing down the Berlin Wall. I had to go to bed.
So, today we have checked out the movie Starman Atomic Rulers of the World.
He was 89.
So, for those of you at home who have no clue what Starman is or what its significance to Tokusatsu would be, Starman is the American adaptation of Supergiant, which is the very first Tokusatsu superhero. Supergiant aired as what was essentially a variation of a movie serial. It was a series of, I think it was 9 movies.
I got a question, Dr. Brown.
Yes.
Where does this fall in chronological order compared to the Superman series of television?
Okay, so this starts in 1957, which I believe would be during the George Reeves run of Superman.
So it had already started.
But it is certainly after the Kirk Alyn movie serials from the 40s and 1950s. So, and it patterns itself from what we've seen today, and I've seen the movie serial and the television show with George Reeves. It probably patterns itself more closely after the movie serial.
I mean, I wasn't going to say there were direct nods, but there were a lot of similarities just based on the technology at the time.
Yes. So there were 9 Supergiant feature films produced from 1957 to 1959.
And we saw one?
We saw 2 of them.
2 of them.
So Starman is basically them combining the different parts together to make a movie. In this case, it's parts 1 and 2, and the actual original movie 1 and movie 2 were one actual continuous story.
Okay.
So it made sense that they combined these into one feature film. The film series stars Ken Utsuyi, I think I'm saying that right, as Utsui. Utsui.
And orphans!
Yes, it stars Ken Utsui in the title role of Supergiant, who has no other name. He has no alter ego.
Hey, it's that strong guy.
Yes. Essentially, if you want the similarities between Supergiant and Superman, he comes from the Emerald Planet. Krypton is always portrayed as being green, so there's part 1. His homeworld isn't destroyed, but it is home to several different races, one of which just does this a lot.
Oh, they did like this too.
Oh, they did? Yeah, this and this.
And then
So,
like that.
Oh, I must have slept through that part.
you weren't here for that part, actually.
Oh, okay.
That was before you got here.
Okay.
But that is when Will decided that all suspension of disbelief was
Which
dead.
is done.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he wears a 3-piece suit and a hat.
Yes.
So he does look like Action Cub reporter, even though he doesn't do jack.
The premise is that he is created. He's not a person. He's actually a creation of the inhabitants of planet Emerald, who is sent to Earth with his globe meter or globometer.
I remember him saying that.
Or something like that. The way they Galometer. There we go. In the adaptation that we watched, which basically serves 3 essential purposes. Which one is that it detects radiation. 2, it allows him to fly through space. And then it allows him to speak and understand any language on Earth. Now, why it would only allow him to understand and speak languages on Earth when he is an interstellar creature, I haven't figured out yet. And I'm probably thinking too hard if I'm trying.
I want to say because they specifically sent him to Earth to protect Earth.
Makes sense. Supergiant was actually named for a baseball team. American baseball was just becoming a huge deal in post-war Japan around this time, and so he was actually named after the Yomiuri Giants, who were an incredibly popular baseball team in Japan at the time.
I hope their uniforms didn't look like that costume.
No, they didn't. very much was inspired by the adventures of Superman, and officially his name was Super Giants, plural, even though there's only one guy. Couldn't tell you why. Wacky
Inside, he's
characters.
made up of 97 eels.
Yeah. So, has been seen overseas, very popular. So in Japan, he is Super Giant, or also sometimes called the Giant of Steel, instead of the Man of Steel. In the U.S., it's Starman. If you're in France or Italy, it was released as Spaceman. So there you go.
That one makes the most sense.
Yeah, out of all of them. So, and he is officially considered the first tokusatsu superhero. He debuts in 1957. He debuts 1 year ahead of Gecko Kamen, which is Moonlight Mask. So, which was the first televised superhero in tokusatsu history. Not actually the first Japanese superhero, period. The first Japanese superhero, period, is from the 1930s, and he's called the Golden Bat. So, interesting business all the way around. If you want a full plot of the movie, go Google it. You can actually find this on Amazon. You can actually buy the DVDs of it, and I'm oddly considering it because they're not overly expensive. Or you can do what we did today and find a bootleg Roku channel, which has all of them on it. But the first movie, Atomic Rulers of the World, long story short, criminals are building a nuclear bomb to hold Japan hostage. They want to eventually take over the world, which they assume that they can take over Japan in one day, and then the rest of Asia, Europe, and the United States on day 2. They figure this is a 2-day plan. Ambitious little buggers.
And then the rest of the world will just fall in line.
Yes.
Yeah, it's yeah. I still say the logistics of that plan are very, very flawed.
Very. So,
Well, the bomb was in an attaché case. So,
before we
It
get...
also looked like just a regular test tube
full of sand.
Yes.
It probably was. So before we get too far into our analysis, just a couple of quick reminders. We would love for you to hit the subscribe button here on the channel. That helps us out a great deal. We're now over 135 subscribers. When I checked this morning, I think it's 137 or 138. When we hit 150 subscribers, we're going to do our next Geek Carolina giveaway. Grace Dupree won our last Denzicaster giveaway, and she has a copy of Ultraman sitting on her shelf right now, courtesy of us here at Geek Carolina. So somebody's going to win something coming up. I actually have a stack of stuff sitting over here beside me that I'm not going to spoil just yet, that need to find new homes, but it's all this stuff right here. So,
You can't win. You're part of the show.
No,
Yeah.
I was going to say.
You want to see what it is?
No, I was going to say. So like, does that mean the Pringles are up for grabs too?
No, the Pringles are not up for grabs.
Are they the ramen ones?
However,
I was going to ask about those.
however,
I like them.
so folks,
You would.
you know,
They're tasty.
one of the things we've been doing here on Denzicaster lately
is torturing.
is
people.
torturing folks, except for Dave, who oddly likes it. And when Damon Wayland was on the show a couple weeks ago, he seemed to really like them, and I don't know why. He tried one before the show started, and he liked it, so I knew it wasn't going to be funny. We didn't try it while he was on the air.
Aw.
But don't worry, DW is going to be back a little later on this month, so we're expecting to see him a little later on. I think we're going to be doing Gamera the next time he's down. So, the 90s.
Have you
Gamera,
not
so the
had
good
these?
ones.
I've
Have
not
you-
seen the '90s Gamera.
I think-
but I have not seen it.
Well, then I will try to make sure you can make it over when we do that. No, he was talking about the ramen Pringles.
Yeah, have you not
Have
had
you not
those?
seen these yet?
No, I've seen them.
Have you tried one?
Oh hell no.
Who cares
Well,
if you look at
today,
it? Eat it.
folks, don't worry. Our lights out segment of the show, we're going to be trying some top ramen chicken flavored Pringles. Well, I never make the person that's trying it alone. So I hate them, but I'll try one with you.
Dude, I'll eat it.
I know you'll eat it, but that's no fair because you like them.
No, I mean, I'll eat them with you and I'll save you.
Somebody's got to suffer. Somebody's got to suffer with Will. Okay, folks. So
I suffered with Will when we moved the furniture.
well, that's true. So, folks, time to talk about Super Giants. Let's first things first. Normally, we don't break this down 8-star anime style where we talk about the tangibles and intangibles, but it actually seems appropriate here because we're looking at something from the 1950s.
Yeah.
Super Giant came out in 1957 in Japan. This didn't air in the United States as a film until 1965. So, first things first, I will ask the effects on this production, because that's what Toku is. It's special
Right.
effects driven cinema. What did we think of the special effects?
I think they were good for what they are from the 50s.
Okay.
They've done a lot of things that were brave,
Mhm.
and sometimes they forgot some of the most simplest things.
Okay.
Like, for example, when he was flying, his flying in the same scene with cars moving, I thought that was really cool.
That's
Except the cape wasn't affected by the flying.
Well, the cape, I think part of that was probably part of it was shoddy effect work. But part of it was the cape isn't so much a cape. It's like the Spider-Man cape.
Right.
It goes from
His gliding
wrist,
wings.
it's like gliding wings. But they were doing some stuff with the flying effects that would not be done in an American superhero production realistically until
late 70s?
Until Christopher Reeve Superman, where you actually try to composite the
78
guy flying
or 79?
into it's 77 or 78
Yeah.
into a shot with
Other moving things.
I'm trying to think if there's another one. I know that the Captain Marvel movie serial Shazam for the uninitiated. The Captain Marvel movie serial from the 40s did it a little bit, but they did it by wiring up a mannequin on a string.
Right.
So they were able to do it in camera that way. But realistically, the Kirk Allen, when they were flying, it was animated. And then in his movie serial was Superman. And then in George Reeves, the most you ever saw him flying on screen with somebody was jumping on a trampoline or coming into
through
the shot.
something. Yeah.
Falling out of a window.
Yeah, it was never him. It was never him actually in flight.
That's awesome. I don't care what you say.
He's
He's all like, up, up, and away by going down. They'll never see him coming.
Too soon. Anyway, but
Superman using them ninja skills, misdirection.
But I can't think of, and I never saw the Captain Marvel TV show that
I
came
didn't even
out
know there
in
was one.
the 70s. There was a live action Captain Marvel show, and I don't recall.
So I mean, like the other two big superhero shows over that time period are going to be like what? The Adam West Batman, he climbed up walls.
Right.
Spider-Man, he climbed up walls. The Hulk, he pushed down walls.
Right.
So yeah, no one else really did that. They didn't need to.
No. But I thought a lot of the effects work was actually incredible for the time frame. That's one of the things we say a lot on this show is when you're looking at something in television or movies, you have to judge it by the time in which it was made. You can't look at something like this and judge it by 2018 standards of
And
special
even
effects
if you
work.
did, it would be campy and fun.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it would be not good, but it's not bad. I mean, it's not like it's a superimposed giant tomato rolling down the road and that's supposed to be the monster.
No, attack the killing tomatoes.
Yeah.
But
Or a psychic tire.
what
God.
So, Will, anything stand out for you with the effects in this piece?
They're actually pretty well done for the time period.
Yeah.
That kind of scared me, except for like the beginning.
Yeah. Well, that was the costume work.
The costume work, yeah.
They were just ahead of the time. They were doing the robot and they didn't know it.
The first thing that went through my mind when I saw the one guy when he was doing this, I was like, "You can't see me. You can't."
I was thinking it was Space Macarena.
Yeah, it could have been that too. And then you had the one that was directing traffic.
Oh, it was the same
It
one.
was aliens for the hearing impaired.
So, which reminds me, have you ever seen? Because I know you like the Alien movies. Yes or no?
Yes.
How about you? Have either of y'all ever seen Godzilla versus Destroyer?
No.
Okay, you are going to have to watch that
Like,
because Destroyer has a heavy, heavy influence from Alien. as a
Every
monster design.
Godzilla movie except
Like-
one I've seen with you.
Like Queen alien type thing?
No, not really.
Okay.
So no power ballads?
No. So the no Queen, killer or otherwise. So yeah, the effects work was very good in this, I thought, including some of the effects to make it look like Supergiant Starman was jumping incredible distances. It's a very age-old trick of running the footage backwards, which it was done in tokusatsu television. Frankly, still is today in some cases.
They did that well, except for the one scene where he's like jumping out of the water.
Yeah, because there's no way to hide the splash and make it look seamless.
Throwing the sword to the suit of armor, and then the suit of armor grabs the sword. That was bad.
That was just silly.
It was funny, but it was bad.
There's a couple of bad ones in there, but not many. I think there was the one shot with the helicopter going into...
Because it was a
I mean,
toy.
it actually looked good up until it made it into the bunker, and then
Did
you
you
could
not see it take
then
off?
You could see like, yeah, I saw that.
Where it took off like this. I don't know a lot about helicopters, but I didn't think they flew backwards.
They can, but no. But yeah, when it was going in, it was like actually like, oh yeah. I was like, and then as soon as the door starts to close behind it, you see it just doing like that.
The most impressive effect shot in the whole thing to me is actually very early on when he's on the airplane and he's saving the plane. There's a shot where it's evident that it's a toy plane, but they do a composite shot of the plane and him flying in behind it and landing so that he comes up and lands on the rear of the plane on the tail. An excellent effect. They were smart to have some rain and some smoke for cloud effects in there to hide any.
Yeah, they have him fly a
wires.
lot at night.
Yeah, so that they're smart in the way they handle a lot of that. And I'll be honest, that shot happened one of two ways. It was either a composite shot, which I thought there was a loose chance that it was a composite shot, but I didn't think it was. But they did a composite shot later of him flying behind a car. So that's
the one I like.
Yeah, and that was very obviously a composite shot. I figured it was either that or they had an action figure, like a doll made up as him, and they were doing the whole thing in miniature. And I'm starting to think that they probably just did a composite shot, which is more impressive when you stop to think about it.
I like the props, the costumes. They were all very well done. I mean, some of the villains had some major firepower.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to the costumes while we're talking about the look of the show.
I like the real world costumes. The villain costume, the superhero costume were kind of cheesy and lame to me. But
like the villain costumes, some of them were.
I wonder if it's because it was in black and white. Maybe with a different color scheme, it might not have been stupid looking.
No, it would have been stupid looking regardless.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But the painting moved and there was a screen behind it. Classic!
Yes. There was with the villain costumes in this, are bad guys who are, Mongolia? Yes. Mongolia?
They had a picture of Satan on the wall.
Fakistan.
Let's just go with that.
Yeah, the citizens of Fakistan. This country, their bad guy, evil villain uniforms were essentially
white Teletubbies. They look like fucking Teletubbies.
I
didn't think about it at first, but it just now hit me, especially the main guy.
I thought they looked like bargain basement radiation suits. You know, like Homer Simpson wears at the beginning of the.
It just looked like white jumpsuits with some stylized black skull looking thing on the chest.
like the full the it's not a baklava, but it's a balaclava face mask.
Okay.
One of those things. It's like
a face cowl.
Yeah, they had like those things on it.
There's actually a very similar cowl to the one that Starman wears throughout the entire movie.
Yeah, because I thought for a second there, like, wait a minute, is Starman one of those people? Because I didn't see the origin story.
Right. The bad guy costumes didn't bother me overly much. I've seen worse. I actually got some really huge Dr. No vibes when you saw them working in the actual radiation costume. So with like the big big plexiglass helmets on over it and everything. It felt like the Doctor No radiation suits in the end of that James Bond movie, where quite frankly, the ones in this looked better. The costumes I didn't mind too much, and given that it's the 50s and you're expecting 50s gangsters in a lot of this style of movie, you got 50s gangsters. I mean, with the suit and tie, and the most interesting choice was 95% of the bad guys wore bow ties. Which I thought was an interesting choice to do. If you're trying to tell good guys from bad guys at a glance, just look for the guys wearing bow ties. They're probably evil.
And then like the Richard Nixon stunt double. And the Richard Nixon stunt double.
Yeah, and there was the Richard Nixon stunt double. And Starman, whenever you saw him in his civilian clothing, wore a traditional necktie instead of a bow tie. Except for the very end where he showed up to the fancy party in the tux.
His suit changing skills were on point.
So
like he walked Starman, boom, regular dude.
So one thing, it's never established that Starman has a power for super speed. Yes. He is very strong. He is made out of a nearly indestructible material, i.e. bulletproof. But they never establish super speed as
10 times stronger than American steel or something like that.
Yeah.
I think he does sometimes when his leaps and his moves, but they're usually No, realistically, they're because of the special effects, but
Sure.
I mean, if we want to suspend it and live in that world, I think maybe his super speed only comes in certain movements, short bursts, maybe.
But the reason I say this is because in Tokusatsu, he is considered the first superhero. He's not considered the first henshin hero, which is someone that transforms. That honor goes to Kamen Rider from 1971. He is considered to be the first henshin hero. But after watching this movie, I actually think you can make a reasonable argument that Supergiant was a transforming hero, only on grounds of sort of the quick changes, because with Kamen Rider, that really is all he was doing, was a quick change. When you go back and look at the original Kamen Rider from 71, he had those powers out of costume.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was still a cyborg no matter what. So he may not have been able to do all the cool flippy, or didn't do all the cool flippy things, but that wasn't so much because it wasn't...
Well, was his suit supposed to be armor to protect him?
No. So the way they kind of played off in the original Kamen Rider is when you see him in human form, that's the costume. Oh. When you see him in his heroic costume, that's the real form.
It's possible that Starman's suit could just change.
Yeah.
I mean, they built a person.
Yeah. So, who knows? But yeah, this is the origin of the Tokusatsu quick change, which is something that Toku heroes have done forever and a day. The only thing we didn't see Starman do is reach up here and throw the clothes
do
off.
A morphing phase.
Yeah, we didn't see him do that type of quick change. But he sure as heck walked by a wall and was in the superhero costume 1 second and
came around the corner
suit the next. So
well, he jumped off the top of the orphanage. Cool.
Yes.
He was in his suit, he jumped down, he's a normal dude.
Yeah. The only thing I think visually about Supergiant's costume that I didn't care for, his costume is incredibly basic, but as you would expect, this is the first televised superhero. It is basically a white unitard with a white cowl.
Yeah, he looks like Condom Man.
There is an antenna that comes off the top of the cowl.
Is that what that was?
Yes. And then there is essentially a metallic V that comes down and
to a belt.
To a belt, and it goes down both sides, and it's this metallic thing. The only thing I think I didn't care for about it, care for too much with it, is that you could tell it was actually white, and it wasn't overly thick. And the reason I say you can tell that is because, one, every time he was in a scene that it was raining, the suit got a little transparent.
I didn't see that.
So there was that, and it noticeably darkened. But the other thing is that if you wanted to achieve a white-colored costume in a black and white movie, they could have very easily picked like a yellow or another very light color that wouldn't have the same problem when it got wet.
Yeah.
Or they could have used a thicker material. But so there was that. Although I do applaud them for when the costume did get dirty in a scene, they did actually leave it dirty through the entire scene. So there was some continuity, which you don't normally see. So I applauded that. What do we think of our hero himself, Supergiant, Starman?
Not bad.
Him being a made creature makes his personality a lot more understandable. Because he didn't have one.
Yeah, he really didn't have one.
He sounded a lot like Sergeant Joe Friday from Dragnet with the work they did for him.
I think he was supposed to be just kind of like monotoned and like straight laced and just talk like this the entire time that he spoke, because he didn't have any kind of.
You should give me that gun. I'll show you a trick with it.
Yeah, and it was the whole thing of maybe he never had any actual human interaction, not even like some kind of video they could have shown him, so that way he would know. Because if they built him, he's essentially AI. So
yeah. So I will say that I thought the personality of Starman it fit given the origin they give him. Now, do keep in mind that we were watching Starman, not Supergiant, which means we are also watching with 1960s dubbing.
So whatever the Americans at that time translated it to.
Right. And which actually had really good like syncing. It didn't like most when they would start talking and then you would hear the translation.
Of all the characters we saw, I had the most sympathy for the criminal who they sentenced to death.
The bad guys sentenced to death? Yeah. So the bad guys in this, I will say this: they do not hesitate to off their minions for failing. So there's another Toku trope that is born in this one. Also, I will say this: when they had like the big demon head thing on the wall, which you picked up on. When I first saw that, I was like, "Oh God, this is the birth of the Blue Light Special," which is a trope from, I know it best from Kamen Rider, where the actual big bad is a painting or a statue or something on the wall with a light and a speaker, and you never actually see it until the finale. They do that in Kamen Rider, where it's literally a blue light that flashes, and you hear the voice, and the great leader is somewhere else, and you don't actually see him until the series finale. So I thought it was going to be that for a second, but no, it was actually the ambassador.
Okay. So I was going to say, so it wasn't the guy that had like the worst world takeover plan ever?
No, he actually was the bad guy, but he was also the ambassador. So, yeah, it was the same dude.
What do you think of the audio quality? Not only the music, but
actually, it wasn't too bad for I guess something that I'm guessing they kind of digitally remastered the whole entire audio.
You think so?
Possibly.
It is a bootleg Roku channel. I'm not giving them that much credit.
Hey man, you never know. They might have found one that's in really good
Like
quality.
you said,
And we'll just be like, fuck it, we use it.
Like you said, the dubbing is really good. The special effects sound effects are okay. The music got on my nerves.
The music,
and it wasn't the music; it was the way they did it. It's like, here's the scene, here's all this music, and then gone. Next.
So two things. Number one, I will bet you anything that the music we heard is all stock music from the catalog of whatever company did the dubbing.
Probably.
I will guarantee you it's not the original music from Supergiant, because that was very common practice for those type of movies when they were brought over to America.
Yeah, the only music that actually sounded somewhat exciting was the one during the big fight in the cave where he goes to rescue the sister.
The music I could have cared less for, but the voice acting for 50s production was actually quite good, so I didn't mind it at all. You're talking about the action scene, so let's move on to the action. So we've got the action. We have a couple of nice big fight scenes in the movie. There's one about halfway through, which is kind of obviously the climax of Supergiant 1, and then we have the big fight scenes at the end, which would be the climax from Supergiant 2, best guess. So, and I think there's actually like 2 or 3 fight scenes that make up the third act.
There's a chase scene or two.
One, and like the first 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah, but that was him versus two dudes.
I know that was more of a setup kind of thing.
It establishes his powers for the most part.
And lets a kid get kidnapped.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we'll be being dumbasses.
We're going to come back to the kids, because we're going to get to that, because when we start talking about things we didn't like.
Okay.
So
natural selection.
So but no, the action I actually thought was pretty good. As silly as this will sound, with the exception of familiarity with the characters and a predisposed emotional attachment to the characters, I would rather watch the action sequences from this than the Adventures of Superman.
I haven't seen that show in so long, it'd be hard.
Okay, the Adventures of Superman action sequences, there was nothing that compared to what was in this movie.
I mean, so in my mind, the only one I can remember is kind of like the Batman series, and it was supposed to be campy, so it was silly and fun.
I get you on that.
I wasn't. I chalked it up to be 1950s.
So I liked the scale, because you can imagine that if this is Supergiant is, for all intent and purpose, for this time frame, he is Japan's Superman stand-in, right? So you're not going to send 5 dudes after Superman. You're going to send all the dudes after Superman, which they did.
But he struggled with 2 people.
Yeah, but he's not exactly Superman.
Well, no, I mean, Superman had that problem in the television.
Yes, he did, because there were no supervillains that popped up in the Adventures of Superman.
And it's like the whole thing.
It was like, you can punch through a wall. He stopped a car with his hand. Right?
Well, it's the whole thing of learning to use your powers.
But he couldn't pick this one dude up and knock him the hell out?
Well, it kind of got to it at one point, like near the end of that fight, where he punches him and the dude breaks his hand. So.
Well, I understand him being hard to hurt and all that. That's fine. But if he's supposed to be strong enough to bend a gun, And then again, you may make the argument maybe he's not strong enough to bend the gun. Maybe his super density, being twisted between two dense places is what bends it. I don't know.
His primary mission, as stated at the beginning of the movie, which you missed this part, but it's obvious because
What, don't hurt humans?
he is here to protect Earth and humanity. So you can argue that he has a hard time fighting people because he's trying not to hurt them.
Yeah.
I
Trying
mean,
to incapacitate.
there are things that I like he made the bad guys drive him.
Okay,
I can dig it.
That was just funny.
Yeah.
I think you're wasting time. Why are we stopped here? Oh, there's a problem with the car.
In any,
Well, fix it.
in any other movie, he's the bad guy doing that.
Right?
Right? I mean, because he basically kidnaps the bad guys.
That's awesome.
So, and makes them drive in places.
And then, when he gets into the
Just saying
plane,
it's funny.
or not the plane, the train, when he gets into the train, and the guy gets up, and what's he do? He sucker punches him. Wham! Oh, he's sick.
Yeah. Sorry, the gentleman's not feeling well.
Those were
So-
kind of funny.
So,
I found it more humorous than action.
yeah, I can buy that, but I thought the fight scenes, I thought when you got to the big third act battles,
Right.
the big third act climactic fights, I thought the number of people you see on screen, the actual scale,
Right,
of
well,
it
like the giant fight in that room where the guy pulls out swords.
yes, there is that, and then the second part, and the sword fight was actually pretty good.
Yeah.
And then the second thing that I enjoyed was the way they were shot. They shot a lot of them in wide shots, so you could see the scope of it, and you could see the
And
scale.
everyone
of the
hit
fight.
their marks.
Yes, and everybody hits their marks. So I enjoyed that a great deal. Let's talk about stuff we didn't care for.
Well, we got one more last thing that you do
Okay.
like. The intangibles. How did you feel about the story?
Oh, wait a minute.
And
Wow,
did you
they start
enjoy it?
now.
Yeah, you started it.
I said we don't normally, but we're going to talk. No, intangibles, like I said, let's get to things I didn't like. So
Oh,
the story in this, folks, is bog standard simplistic.
cookie cutter.
Yeah.
See what's left of my water? That's about it.
It wasn't. Now, it might not have been bog standard simplistic when it came out, but now when we sit down and we look at it, these are things we've seen time and time again. So this is very tropic.
Well, and that's exactly. I mean, during
But
the
this is
movie,
where
we
it
were like,
started.
"Oh boy, it's this trope."
Yes. So there is that. There's not a great deal to the story. It's somebody's going to use a nuclear weapon to hold the world hostage. Now, it was very timely for Japan in the 1950s, and it makes sense that this would be a major plot and considered a major threat. Go back and look at Godzilla, because Godzilla, which came out 3 years before Supergiants did,
Is that going to be our measuring stick for a lot of things?
Godzilla.
Yeah, 'cause it feels like it.
For this, probably.
For this, no, I mean, you go back and this is actually contemporary to Godzilla. So most definitely, I would consider this a similar measuring stick. I don't think it was as groundbreaking.
No,
But if you go back and look, the story itself, while one is an allegory, one is a story about an active threat.
I guess the other one I want to ask is was this kind of built and marketed for children?
Very much.
Okay,
Very
so
much.
that helps.
In fact,
Where Godzilla isn't.
No. In fact, one of the things that Supergiant suffered from, that we're drawing parallels between this and the George Reeves Superman.
Right.
One of the things that plagued the George Reeves Superman, not only did it plague George Reeves himself, but there were also instances of this happening with children where they would try to fly and get hurt jumping out of windows and whatnot. The same thing happened in Japan with kids who watched Supergiant. And there was an instance of a kid trying to fly like Supergiant, falling, getting seriously hurt, and that's what killed the franchise. There was not another Supergiant movie made after that point. But other things that didn't care for, does anybody else have anything to say about the story?
No, I mean I think that it's cookie cutter is enough. It's not bad. It's a nil.
Yeah.
It's a wash.
There's one part of the costume that I do not care for on Supergiant, and that is Supergiant's got an incredible package.
And it wasn't delivered by UPS.
No, it was not. It was delivered by your favorite cotton mill. The producers made actor Ken Utsui stuff the crotch of his costume with cotton wadding in order to make him look very well endowed. And the thought process was that you would attract more female viewers if the hero looked well endowed. And Utsui himself found it.
Please ask the question I'm thinking.
Utsui himself found it incredibly embarrassing. He hated it, and as a result, up until his passing in 2014, he would always downplay the significance of Supergiant, period, and didn't care to talk about it, generally speaking. He despised the role, and this was actually one of the chief reasons.
So, if they were trying to attract a more female audience, why, if this was marketed towards kids?
Yes!
So,
you asked the question I was thinking.
So, for anybody at home that wants to hear this in long form, go find an old Denzi Blitz bonus I did, because someone asked a very similar question. I think I did like a 30-minute answer for it on Denzi Blitz bonus one time. But I'll give you the shorthand version of it here. You're looking at time, this is a theatrical product. It's in movie theaters. It's not airing on television. Somebody's got to take the kids to the theater. So you're either going to it's either going to be the dads or the moms. And so...
And moms are most likely.
Yeah.
Moms were likely to buy the... Yeah, okay, I got you.
So one is you do that because that's something for the moms.
Right.
It's the same reason why tokusatsu shows through the 70s and 80s and some even into the early 90s, they would have the obligatory beach episode where you could see the heroines in swimsuits and whatnot. Those were the for the dads moments because a lot of TVs or a lot of homes only had one television set. So if it was going to be tokusatsu on, it was going to be something that everybody was willing to watch.
I get that point, what you're saying about his costume. I think, for what little I've watched of it, they were trying to make it, it's going to sound dumb, but just round like an action figure.
No, this is...
I get what you're saying.
Documented reason.
I get that, but for me... It didn't look like that. It just looked like he's round like an action figure.
I didn't say they did a good job. I just said what they did. So we now have. Is there anything else? I've only got one other thing here I didn't care for. But is there anything else? Anything you guys didn't care for in this piece?
Dumbass kids.
There we go.
I didn't mind the kids. They were a little annoying because there was like 6 of them.
They
stole
a
a gun. They stole a nuclear device and a gun. And then the
No,
one
wait a
kid
minute.
just start. No, wait.
Okay, go ahead.
The one kid's sitting there playing with the gun, and I'm just
Oh,
like,
because you guys never watched a show that did that before.
I just thought it was like,
Well, no,
I even back then thought it was generally a bad idea.
Well,
and my
no.
parents taught me about guns.
No, I
so
agree
I'm
with
just
you.
saying.
I'm going to go ahead and say I've condemned it in our Johnny Sacco reviews when Johnny Sacco has and uses.
You
a
two
firearm.
were watching something. It was something in the Live Man series. Somebody had a gun because I remember I caught the tail end of that in that episode.
Maybe, but Johnny Sacco is the big one, where Johnny Sacco is a kleptomaniac and he just steals everybody's gun and actually uses it.
Yeah.
But
At least this one wasn't loaded.
in the confines of the world, he's the most qualified field agent for a government organization. So I guess maybe why not? But no, this is just a bunch of kids from an orphanage who found
A gun and a briefcase, and they just picked them up.
Well, at least they weren't playing with the briefcase.
The only part
Not
of-
yet. They didn't get a chance.
But didn't
to
they
play with
steal it
briefcase.
away from the guys because they knew it was bad?
Well, no,
They
picked it up.
they
There's
just
a
stole it.
briefcase
Like
on
literally,
the
they
ground.
just.
Oh, they were just
briefcase
hanging at the beach when the fight started?
Yeah.
I walked in during the fight.
Yeah, so it was basically them picking up a gun and.
I'm
the
like, oh
briefcase.
look, there's mooks fighting, and there's some kids.
I was like, what the fuck? Okay.
We gotta call the cops. I want to play with the gun a little bit. Oh, this is
Yeah,
gonna
that
end
was
well.
that was the part of that was just like, really? We don't take the precaution to call the police, turning this in? I mean, come on. But no.
Luckily, Supergiant arrived on the scene.
To bend the gun.
Anything that you didn't, and then to throw the gun into the field.
Well, I mean, pacing would be my issue. I fell asleep several times in and out. Pacing was very rough for me. And that was over like a 45-minute.
I did notice you have an eerie talent that you share with Chris Brown.
Falling asleep?
No, the ability to snore while awake.
Yes.
Where we can't actually tell if you're sleeping half the time.
Yes.
No. Actually, it's the opposite. When I start to snore, it immediately wakes me up.
Oh, okay, fair.
I caught myself one time and I'm like, was I snoring? I bet I was. Act casual.
So, final thoughts on Starman Atomic Rulers of the World.
Mine's easy. If you're into this stuff, check it out. For me, I don't care.
Yeah, I can take it away with.
It's interesting to watch if you want to see the origins of Toku heroes. If you want to see where it all starts, just like if you want to see the origin of Daikaiju, you owe it to yourself to watch Godzilla. I think if you want to see where Tokusatsu superheroes begin, it's worth watching. But if you don't give a damn...
I think if we were doing a game...
I think if I was bombed out of my mind, that would be good.
We here do not condone. I think if we were playing a game in that genre and it was in the background, it would be beautiful for stuff like that.
Yeah. Now, we actually have added something because we want to fit in with all the other shows here on Geek Carolina. And I've resisted it for a long time. We've added a rating system here on Denzicaster. So it's very simple. It's
necessarily my idea.
Huh?
It wasn't necessarily my idea.
What, the rating system?
For
Well, Chopsaki has cranes, and 8-Star Anime has 8 stars. So we now have our own rating system, and basically that rating system goes from nope. So you have nope, meh, maybe, it's all right, hell yeah. So
Meh.
For myself, maybe. Is it Toku 101?
No, it's pre-Toku.
I'm gonna agree with Dave on that one.
It's Toku prehistory.
It's like when you have to go to that cram course before you start college. It's like, hey, we're only gonna watch 4 weeks of stuff, and it's kind of a pass-fail class. If you show up and you participate, you pass. And this is one of those shows.
I would actually call Starman. I would probably call it more like.
So it's the remedial math.
Well,
no.
Yeah, it's to catch you up because there's so much Americanization from the dubbing. I think you're going to lose some stuff.
See, to me, I would call this like Toku 201. This is where
Toku history.
Oh, where you learn the history of
where you're learning the history of it. I would call it more that. This isn't the introduction. This is learning the history of it. So folks, we thank you very much for joining us. It wasn't bad. It was actually pretty decent. I think that we can agree on that all the way around. There are 3 more movies in the Starman series. If you want to see us talk about those, because we have access to them, just let us know in the comments below. If you liked the video, give us a thumbs up. If you didn't like the video, give it a thumbs down. Either way, let us know why in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. That really does help us out. Share the video wherever you like, and check us out on social media, wherever that may be. You'll see all that down below in the notes. You can also check us out at our 2 stores to help us out here on Geek Carolina. That's cafepress.com/Geek Carolina and redbubble.com/people/Geek Carolina, where you can get shirts like the Kamen Rider Drive inspired t-shirt, not Drive, Build inspired t-shirt I've got on. Dave's the one that's got the Kamen Rider Drive sweatshirt. So I keep meaning to get that as a t-shirt.
That's because it's fabulous.
It is a pretty cool shirt. I do like it. So folks, remember, you do that. Those proceeds go to help us out here at the channel with new cameras, new tripods. I'm still using rubber bands to hold the camera on the tripod.
And the camera is a phone.
Yeah, but it's that's a decent camera.
No, I'm not saying that, but it's a phone.
Although we could use lighting. I know we could use that over at Studio D.
Studio D has regressed. We were at Studio 2.0. We're now back to Studio 2.0 or 1.0.
Oh, okay.
So you gotta go out to the living room. But construction at the house has got done. Cool. So hopefully 8-Star will be doing more.
I'm just kind of making use of what I got at the house.
Hey, but if you've seen the new latest Chop Sock episodes, it's actually pretty darn good.
And you know what you're about to have?
That's because my black ass knows some engineering shit. That's why.
So folks, if you came for the review,
you about to have a tater chip.
So folks, thank you for joining us. We hope you've had a wonderful time with us. For Dave and for Will, I'm Mike. Thanks for watching us here on Electric City Sentai Denzicaster. And if all you came for was the review, well, that's done. We'll see you next week. However,
Tato chip.
It is time for our top ramen flavored Pringles. Top ramen chicken flavored Pringles. For the record, why do you think I got a cup of milk over here?
You guys are so weird. They're not that bad.
They are horrid. They are terrible.
They taste like the ramen.
No, they taste like the ramen. They taste like you just up in and shotgun the powder pack that comes with it. Here, smell the stopper.
I used to do. See, what I used to do is just make the noodles and then pour all the water off and then add this.
I kind of breathed in a little too.
Really?
What, do you get a contact eye?
No, but
I can't get my fat hands in there.
However, my eye is burning.
Look at that tasty.
Here you go. Have one.
Let's flip it over.
So, folks, these are the, before you try it, so these are they're the ramen chicken flavored Pringles. We've had these on several of our shows.
Which is my favorite ramen to begin with.
Could be, could be worse. Could be the creamy chicken.
These ain't shrimp.
I would actually be more inclined to give it a shot if it were shrimp. All right, here we go, folks.
Just eat the damn thing. It's good.
Why? Why did I do this again?
I can't wait till everybody's done so I can get the rest of the chips before they go stale.
Oh, God.
Are they sold at the store?
They were a limited edition through Dollar General.
Man, I missed that.
So, then we'll put the stopper back on that thing. What are you like, Josh? You don't know if you like it? You don't know if it's bad?
Hey, it's a simple rule. You got to eat two. First one to see if you like it, and the second one to make sure.
No, I'm pretty sure if I try the first one and I hate it, I'm done. I know that it ain't that I hate it.
I like them. They're a little stale compared to the last time I had one.
Well, that's because we've had them here for a little while, but
That might be it.
it's not as strong. The smell is the smell is
really
still potent.
I can't. That might be a good thing I can't taste it then.
I like it.
I will say this.
You like it too.
We had the
I don't know, man. I can't taste it. I'm literally like, there it goes. No, that's bad.
you got
Well,
the finish.
nothing tastes better the second time.
So the finish finally caught up with you, huh?
Yeah.
Hopefully there's going to be a Rage Quit Radio bonus episode that's going to come out in the not too distant future where the entire cast, minus Sam because she wasn't there that day, of the Empyrean Throne tries out the oh Lord, what is it? The extra hot chili lime Pringles that came out, and those things are like death red colored, and they are spicy as hell.
That's already been filmed.
We actually did shoot it, yeah.
Do you still have some of them?
No, I gave them away that day because I did not want to bring those things into the house.
Jesus Christ.
But I can tell you that Marty no-sold them like a champ, but no.
I'm about to say, Marty has a very low tolerance for spice.
Yes, he does, but he no-sold the heck out of it and then decided he hated life later, I think.
I was about to say, well, he's not going to lose the battle to a potato.
No, but I have found our next one. They have a red curry coconut flavored potato chip out now.
You might actually be able to get Charles to be in a show now.
So,
it's curry flavored.
We may give that a shot later. So, folks, we're going to wrap this one up so that Will can get a drink. So, until next time, folks, for Will, who probably can't talk right now, there's Dave, I'm Mike. We'll see you next time.